All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started. I know it's a minute or two late, but hopefully we'll have a few more people joining us. Today we have a great guest for you. Mark Munzenberger is going to be here, and he's going to be discussing managing money, talking about savings and credit cards and budgets and all of those really important things that we should probably be focusing a bit more on. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and then when he's done, I'll come back on and we'll go over what's due this evening and what's due by Sunday. And so go ahead and turn your mics on. Go ahead and mute your mics, and if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box for us right there, and we will get started. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Megan. All right, let me get myself situated, you guys. I'm almost 6'4", so I may not have the camera on for the whole time because I don't want to cut myself off too much. But officially, good morning again. My name is Mark Munzenberger. I am the financial education specialist for the University of Michigan and the Eastern Michigan Credit Union. We also support the branch that we have here at Washtenaw. So it is nice to meet everyone. I've done this presentation a few times, and I love it when we get some chat questions and some feedback, and I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to keep us on schedule. This typically takes me about 45 minutes to kind of take you through, and so we'll cover what I would consider some good essential money management knowledge, and give you some good things to kind of think about and stuff like that. And by all means, the last slide you'll see is my name and email address. If you want to reach out to me individually with some questions and stuff like that, I am always happy to take those. So I'm happy to be with you this afternoon. So really what I do in this workshop, we're just going to have a few minutes of discussion on this concept of, financial wellness. And, is there kind of a high level blueprint that you should think about in terms of, I want to be well, and I want to be financially well. What are those things I need to think about? And then let's get into a little bit more specifics on effective ways to manage money. Let's get into a little bit more specifics on savings and credit education, and a little bit on budgeting, just to make sure we're taking a holistic approach to today's content. So if I were to start out, if you could go ahead and participate a little bit with the chat button, the chat box, it says, please complete this sentence. You are financially healthy when you. And there's not, different things are going to pop in. And I would love to just hear a little bit. If you could complete this sentence with a couple words. You are financially healthy when you. And Megan just typed in, when you win the Powerball tonight.
Yes.
I think I saw Good Morning America or something this morning. It's a whole bunch of millions. So maybe I'll have to drop by and donate my $2 to. So if anybody has, I would love to hear from you. You are financially healthy when you, and it can be just a few words. When you do this, when you do that, when you're that type of thing. Because there's a number of different things.
Yeah, you're so tall.
I am. I know. I'm sorry, Megan. I'm kind of cutting my, let's see, Sierra. I have updated the expenses and stay organized with my monthly payments. Lauren, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in budgeting. It's so funny. One of you guys, when I'm not in a setting like this, I certainly do a lot of workshops, community relations, and stuff like that. I'm also a certified financial counselor, which just means that there's a lot of times members of the credit union, students, and people will come in and just kind of use me as a coach, a counselor to help them through things. And when I'm working with folks, a lot of times what will end up happening is they're struggling with late payments and getting paid on time. And it's not necessarily an income thing. It's more of like, I don't have a good plan. I'm not organized well. So that's a great comment, Lauren, in terms of staying organized with your payments. So yeah, I didn't hear anybody say this. And really what I want you to do is kind of take income out of the equation today. Certainly, income helps kind of keep those wheels moving, but let's remove that as a variable. And let's focus really on these more, I would say, kind of behavioral, or even what we want to do is kind of get to the point where these are habits. And you can kind of see here, this is a good blueprint I use for people that are just kind of really kind of getting their hands on this concept of financial health, this is how I would answer those sentences. You are financially healthy when you spend less than income, paying those bills on time and in full. And we've got a couple under the savings category: sufficient living expenses and liquid savings. That means short-term savings. And then we've got sufficient long-term savings. Do we all have an approach on the longer term? Specifically more retirement. The borrowing category, having a sustainable debt load, making sure that we don't, a large percent of our net income is not going to pay back debt. Having a good credit score is certainly important. At one time or another, guys, we're all probably going to need to borrow some money for a car, for a house, all those things. So we want a good credit score to get a good deal. And then finally, at the end, having appropriate insurance, making sure that whatever is important to us in life, that we're protecting our health and our house and our car and that type of thing, and the ability to plan ahead. If you've got a good ability to look ahead, say, what is my life going to look like in 30 days, 60 days, 180 days, and start setting dollars aside. So this is a good blueprint. This is a good place to start in terms of this conversation on financial health. So I am happy. I will share this with Megan as soon as we finish, and she can post this presentation on the portal or however you guys share docs. So don't worry about having to write all this down. You'll be able to see this. So I'm big on visions, you guys. I put things on my cubicle walls to kind of inspire me and stuff like that. This is my vision. Maybe for this workshop is, become so financially secure that you forget it's payday. I'm not there yet. I know I get paid twice a month, and boy, those are happy days. But let's work on some things that really kind of help us get some good financial stability in our life. So the first question I've got for you, it reads, according to a study that was early in 2018, what percentage of adults regularly use some kind of budget or spending plan? And it's probably maybe a little bit higher than you think. And this, I would concur with this study in terms of my experience with working with adults and households. It's about 1 in 3 that actually use some kind of tangible budget. And the methods are all over. There's no one size fits all. Whatever system works for you in order to, again, stay organized, make sure the priority payments are being made is a good thing. But there's 65 to 70% of us that are just kind of letting our money happen to us. We're just like, money comes in, money goes out. Do we really understand, how much we're spending on certain items? A lot of folks actually have to say no to that. So my encouragement here is, you can see how this slide reads. Financial wellness starts with a budget or spending plan. I don't want you to think that I'm being like overly rigid here, or I'm saying you have to use this method, but just this concept of having on a month-to-month basis a good plan for the finances. Okay, and you can see I kind of like this. I like this little graphic I put here. This is as simple as you can possibly get. Somebody just jotting down, some of the common expenses they have on a notebook. It doesn't have to be terribly complicated or anything that's really time consuming. So I've got a couple different sentences here. They're subtly different. The first one reads, I am on a budget. And the second one reads, I use a budget. So if you were an instructor or you were a financial counselor, which in your opinion, and you can chat me in a 1 or a 2, that's fine, which in your opinion carries a more positive or empowering tone? And I'm just going to kind of take a look, and wow, I'm getting a lot of 2s that are coming in. So it looks like we're pretty unanimous on this. And you guys are kind of right where I want you to be for this right here, because the way I kind of position this topic is, I never want you to kind of approach the word budget or as something that's restrictive or something that I would do to you. Oh, Mark put me on a budget because I've had issues and stuff like that. I don't want you to do that, because I promise you, people that approach it with that kind of attitude, they won't end up using it. So I really want you to think about a budget or a spending plan as nothing more than a financial tool. like you use calculators, like you use financial advisors, like you have a record-keeping system at home, all tools, financial tools that help you do well. That's all a budget is supposed to do. You use a budget, it's not something that you only look at if you're struggling. And it's not anything more complicated than a comparison between the net income, and I'm absolutely emphasizing the word net, you guys. Net is take home. That's what we have to work with. That's exactly what it hits our paycheck, hits our account those couple times a month versus our expenses. And at the very end of the month, all we really need to make sure, you know, at a bare minimum is it balanced? Now, there's going to be a few months that some unexpected, you know, events come up, and certainly, you know, life happens. Listen, it happens to me all the time. I've got 3 kids, and I've got a house to maintain, and all sorts of things. So I have been there. But eventually, I use this analogy, eventually, if we are consistently spending more money than we are bringing in, eventually that boat will take on so much water, it will sink to the bottom. It is unsustainable to spend more than you're bringing in. Very simple concept, but a very important concept to emphasize. And without some type of transparent budget, without you being able to show me something on paper, on an app, that really allows me and someone else to see dollars in, dollars out, it's very hard to understand. You know, it's very hard to answer that question and really determine, are we really struggling with that balanced question? So I would encourage you, gang, and I put a couple different options up here. For those like me that really would prefer something somewhat simple like a notebook, I do use Excel. It's a worksheet I've used for years. It takes me 15 minutes a month just to jot my things down. I'm very happy. I will, once we conclude today, I will send a very basic budgeting spreadsheet to Megan. She's welcome to share it. Customize it, put your own expenses in there, it does the math for you, kind of compares actual versus what, you know, your budgeted amount versus actual. And if you're, you know, it's very easy for me to use, and I track it every single month. There's some really cool apps out there. I would suggest you potentially take a look at YNAB, or You Need a Budget. That's the one in the lower left. That is, it's a cost of about $5 a month, but there's some great education on there, and I think you would benefit from that. Every Dollar is another free app. Dave Ramsey, who is an author and a radio personality, finance, makes Every Dollar available for free. And so if you're looking for something outside of a notebook or Excel, think about using technology, try it for 60 or 90 days, and see if it helps you get a little bit more organized with your finances. So last couple things on budgeting. A lot of very common, you guys, when somebody comes in to see me, and let's say the budget is not balanced, we're running a deficit, we're spending more than we're bringing in. It's very common, or it's very common for people to say, well, my only option is to cut expenses, and I feel I have no more expenses to cut. And I usually counter that with, sometimes the answer is a combination of looking at potentially increasing income just a little bit and decreasing expenses, rather than just one or the other. So boy, even if it's just a matter of $150 or $200 more a month, and there's lots of options out there. We live in an economy now that, you know, we have so many opportunities. Rover is a great website. You can register on there, walk people's dogs, pet sitting, stuff like that. I have a few members that are making $200 to $300 extra a month for working about 10 hours. Pet sitting, walking dogs for people that are on vacation and stuff like that. Uber has driving, and Uber delivers groceries. There's more traditional jobs like at restaurants and Target. Up in the top right-hand corner, you see Refund Coming. We're kind of winding down in terms of tax time, but my suggestion there, you guys, is really give some thought for those that potentially got a tax refund this year. Give some thought as to how much money you're actually getting. Because if that amount is fairly large, you may have an opportunity next year to maybe look at your withholdings, insert a little bit more take-home pay in each of your checks, and not necessarily just kind of tie it all up in a huge tax refund, which ends up usually getting spent within 10 to 20 days. So that's really your money. You've just overpaid on your taxes, so it might help a little bit to help with cash flow if you had a little bit of funds there. So just wanted to, you guys, I know you have great ideas for increasing income. And of course, on the flip side of that is we all have a ton of expenses. And usually one of the more challenging things is when I'm helping somebody set up a budget, everyone's like, oh my gosh, I've got so many expenses. Well, for sure, you guys, we all do, and everyone kind of falls into these different buckets. Usually our fixed are kind of the easy ones because those happen every month and they're the same amounts. It's those last two columns that are a little bit more of a struggle. Those variable expenses like groceries, gasoline, entertainment, where they happen almost every single month, but there's a level of control and the amounts vary a little bit. So those are the categories we really have to give some thought, make sure we're kind of setting some dollars aside, and there may be times where we're not able to do something because, hey, listen, I've got $100 set aside for dining out this month. It's already exhausted. I think today is like March 26th or 7th. I may have to wait until I get paid again to really kind of, to get some more money back in that category. So, and periodic are those expenses that happen 3 or 4 times a year, but they're significant enough where do not forget about those. Do not forget about those. I pay my auto insurance quarterly. If I completely forget about my auto insurance until that bill comes, I'm going to struggle to pay that. So I need to set some dollars aside every single month for my auto insurance. So when that bill comes, I'm able to pay it. I don't have to scramble, even though it's not coming in monthly. So just a few things on budgeting here. And here's a pie chart. Kind of gives you a little bit of a blueprint. Hey, where should my dollars be going? This is not going to be perfect for everybody. But, this kind of gives you an idea. If you're spending 35 or 40% of your money on transportation, 2 car payments, insurance and gas and maintenance, that's going to put the rest of your budget under a lot of pressure. So this is a pie chart that kind of gives you a little bit of a kind of a blueprint about, hey, what's suggested? This is not perfect, but I would encourage you, put your expenses in these 5 categories and tell me how close you get, okay? So let's transition into a little bit about savings. So important. I don't care if you're 20 years old or 40 years old. It's all the same. Save for the future while living for today. Don't we all want to do that? We all want to have a great week, a great month, but it is imperative that we also have one sliver, one eye on the future, because we all want to make sure not only are we comfortable today, we are comfortable going forward. So when I talk about savings, I usually just kind of give you some best practices. So number 1, pay yourself first. If you looked at that pie chart that I showed you just a few minutes ago, 10% of it was in yellow and it said savings. So you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, this is a spending plan pie chart. What do you mean savings? Well, what I'd like you to do is kind of think about savings almost as a bill, an expense that you pay to yourself. We all work hard for our funds and those type of things. So I kind of want you to think like the first person that's going to get a portion of my paycheck is myself. And that could be done through a 401k contribution. It could be done through an automatic contribution into a savings account. It could something like that, but just this concept of paying yourself first. Savings cannot be the last thing in your budget. It needs to be one of the first things. Try to be consistent or automatic. If there's anything you can do to make it automatic, do it. I've got some members that, for example, a lot of folks starting in July, they come to the credit union and they say, from every check that comes in, I want $50 moved into my Christmas fund because my family celebrates Christmas. I need you to move it. Don't wait for a phone call. Don't wait for a text. Move it to my Christmas fund. Once December 1st hits, they've got $400 or $500 sitting there. And it is put on autopilot. So a really effective way to think about ways you can make this automatic. And finally, plan for the expected, but understand, you guys, that the unexpected will happen. Obviously, various times in our life, but the unexpected will happen sometimes. So when we're thinking about savings, I'd like you to try not to lump it all into one bucket. Rather, think about it in these three ways. Number one, we all need an emergency fund. Now, depending on how old we are and our financial obligations, the amount will be different, but we all need a safety net. We all need some funds set aside in an emergency fund. Number two, especially when we start working, we do need some attention to long-term savings or retirement fund. That should be money that's in the market. Okay, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not going to tell you what stock or bond to buy, but you do need to have money in a retirement fund that is growing for you. And finally, living life, taking vacations, doing home improvements, contributing to church and charities that are important to you. Absolutely, we need to have some dollars there. So something unexpected or something fun comes up during the month, my buddy calls me and says, "Hey, Mark, we're headed up to Mount Pleasant for a golf weekend." Well, you know what? Look at this. I've got a couple $100 saved up. Count me in. Let me go get my clubs. So just a fun example, but we all really, the encouragement here is to make sure that we're not lumping these all together, that you're kind of keeping these separate. Certainly for an emergency fund, you guys, this is a golden rule. If we're just starting out, maybe we're young, $500 to $1,000 is a good goal, kind of a good baby step. But once we get more established, we're working full time, we've got a household, let's really strive for anywhere from 3 to 6 months of normal living expenses. And what I mean by that is stuff like your housing, your transportation, your utilities. What does that add up to on a monthly basis? And then let's multiply that by 3 to get a base of emergency fund. Needs to be readily accessible just means, could you get it quick? Could you get it within a day or two? So Megan, if your furnace goes out in January, is that an emergency? It is. In Michigan, it happened to you. Well, congratulations. See, I didn't even know that, and I'm throwing that out there to you. You can't wait 4 weeks to get the furnace fixed. You need to get that fixed. So if Megan has some dollars set aside in a safety net or emergency fund, she's able to lean on that as opposed to maybe a high interest credit card, and then she's able to replenish that fund throughout the year. So I don't want that money tied up in a stock account or something like that. It needs to be probably sitting in a savings account somewhere. And certainly, I want you using it when you need to, on like an insurance deductible for a car accident or a repair. Let's not use it to go to Disney, though. So hopefully, Megan, we've got some dollars set aside to take your family on that needed vacation. Okay, let's leave the emergency fund alone, though. So here's a little creative kind of suggestion I have for you in terms of savings. So my question is, if you saved $1 in week 1, $2 in week 2, $3 in week 3, and we did this for a whole year, what would be the result after 12 months? And I'm just going to give you, that's okay, I'm going to give you 10 seconds, and you can just type me in a number. It's greater than $1, less than $1 million. Let's see who gets close here. If you saved $1 a week, $2 in week 2, all the way up, let's see who gets closest. I'm going to give you, how much will you have at the end of 52 weeks or a full calendar year? And any and all answers I will accept. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. Yeah, Alex, not bad. Yeah, he's giving it an old college try. So the answer to this question is almost $1,400. Here's a more graphical representation of kind of what this looks like. Oops, I'll turn this off. A more graphical representation of kind of what this looks like here, and you can kind of get the idea here. And I'm just sharing this with you because sometimes people need to have like personal challenges. They need to have a plan. They need to like, I don't know, how much should I, I have had members that use this and really have, and they're almost kind of, it's a competition type of thing. And they have this taped up on their fridge or their bulletin board, and I'm telling you, they get so fired up and they will let nothing get them off track. So just a little bit of a fun idea for you, because we all, are always looking for good things, how to save. So the last thing here is, if you're looking for those that like apps, I already shared a couple budgeting apps. Here's a couple great savings apps. Capital is a app that helps you create goals, and it helps you, it is the best savings app, Capital with a Q. Acorns is an app that actually kind of does, it's an investing app where, like, if you buy something for $4.30, it takes the 70 cents and it actually invests it for you. For some people, they're like, hey, how can I get started in investing? I don't have thousands of dollars. Acorn it costs $1 a month. And it rolls up your debit card and credit card purchases. It invests the change into a one of 5 investing mutual funds. It is such a creative and cool way to get started. I'm just kind of throwing, do your due diligence, you guys, and maybe one of these apps will be helpful to you. All right, so let's come here and go, there we go. So let's transition a little bit. Let's do some credit education. Using January of 2019 data, what is the current average APR, which is, or interest rate, for credit cards? And I'm talking Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, those where you can use it anywhere. The answer to this question is almost 18%. 18% for Visa or MasterCards. That's the average. Some are going to be a little higher, some are going to be a little bit lower. And I want to make sure that I preface this. This is not for people with bad credit. This is for people with very good credit. This is the average rates. And for those that tend to use these type of cards, they're not my favorite, you guys. These are retail cards or very kind of cards you can only use at one or two spots. It's almost 28%. So if you are a credit card user and you are not able to pay these balances in full each month, these interest charges are significant, and they can really kind of slow you down a little bit. You're paying on these, but a good portion of your money is going to pay back interest, not principal. So the key to this section is we need to make sure we use credit cards carefully. I'm not suggesting on the call today, on the session today, that credit cards are a bad thing. They can be a very effective way to help build credit, build your financial reputation, cover some expenses and stuff, but we need to use them carefully. And this will give you a little bit of an idea. We talked a little bit. Take a look at the comparison here. If you guys came to the credit union this afternoon and says, yeah, I'm interested in a car loan, I could probably get you out the door for less than 4% right now. Compare that with the interest rates on credit cards, 18 all the way up to about 30%. So credit cards can be an expensive way to borrow money. So we have to kind of understand. We all know how they work, this kind of buy now, pay later, and we need to make sure that we're not using credit cards that are beyond our ability to make those payments. Love those rewards. I have seen a lot of commercials lately about all these rewards. Can anyone give me maybe an idea? What's a common reward? Hey, I used my credit card. I got this or I got that. So go ahead and chat that in. What's an example of a reward just for using? Yeah. Let's see. Oh, everybody's jumping all over this. Cash back, no doubt about it. Sometimes no names. Okay, I'm not going to say. I will work with a member, and we're kind of reviewing their credit card statement, and it's like, wow. I'm going to use you as an example, Megan. I'm like, well, Megan, you've already incurred about $250 of interest charges so far. I know, but I just got a cashback check for $17. I know, but you've already spent about $250 in interest. I know, but when I fly on Delta, I don't have to pay the bag fee. Woo, okay, so we have to be careful. Let's not let those rewards kind of get in the way of good decisions. Here's an example. This credit card balance is not even $5,000 at about a 16% interest rate, and the minimum payment, which most creditors are going to set at about 2 to 3%. So the first question is, what could that interest rate rise to in the event of one late payment? The answer is almost 30%. Credit cards are variable interest rates. They are not fixed, meaning they could change quickly. So we have to be very, very careful that we always make sure we make those payments, at least the minimum payments, on time, and the creditor receives it by the due date. Last month, the customer made no purchases and sent in a payment of $125. They looked at their statement. $60 was added back to that account purely for interest charges. And I sometimes refer to this a little bit. We've all been to the gym. We're running on a treadmill. So we have to be careful. We're sending in these funds and we're not making progress. Third question reads, if the consumer never makes another purchase, they cut the credit card up. They're like, I'm not using this anymore, but only pays the minimum due each month. It will take them 18 years to pay off a balance that is less than $5,000. But on the flip side of that, if we work together and we say, getting in this habit of making minimum payments is getting me nowhere. If I found $50 in your budget, maybe a few less Starbucks each month, Megan, okay, that's all I'm asking, a few less Starbucks, I found $50 in her budget, I would be able to take from 18 years, reduce the payoff time to 3. So we really, really need to kind of get out of that habit of just making minimum payments, be more aggressive. And because these are type of loans that can be expensive. All right. Yeah, look how happy she is now. That's a much more reasonable payoff. So the last piece we're going to talk about in terms of credit is credit reports. And I'm very much encouraging you guys. We all, at least a couple times a year, should be accessing our credit report using this website right here. Credit Karma's fine. I know a lot of you guys are probably using Credit Karma. This is the website where you can go directly to the source of the data. We've got 3 credit bureaus in the United States. Please review this at least a couple times a year, because we want to make sure, number one, it's accurate and there's no identity theft going on. So it's really important that you take a look at least a couple times a year. If you are in front of a lender, you want to make sure we get an approval. So the time to review your credit report is prior to any loan applications. It's not right when you're in front of a lender. And of course, looking at your credit report a couple times a year is a very effective way to make sure that there's no kind of tampering with your accounts. I'd look at your addresses. I'd look at your accounts. Any inquiries that are showing up on your credit report. Make sure that those are all legitimate, and making sure that there's no one that is trying to open accounts in your name that you don't recognize. So those are a couple reasons to make sure we're reviewing our credit. The report could be 5 pages, it could be 55 pages. I've seen them all, depending on how long you've had a credit history. But at the end of the day, you guys, the way we work in the United States is we have a credit scoring system. The higher, the better. Obviously, on this chart here, I don't want anyone in the red. I want everybody over in the green. Because if we're over in the green, good things will happen. So we want to be as high on this scale as we can. The range is 300 to 850. We want to be as high as we can. Why does a low score matter? Well, number one, it could make the determination of whether or not we get that loan, the approval or denial. But the second thing we need to understand is it's very common for a lender to say, yes, I'm approving the loan, but your rates are going to be a lot different than the person I just talked to a few minutes ago. So we see people getting car loan rates at 3 to 4%, And I've seen people walk in the credit union with car loan rates of 25%. Very, very different. So that credit score has a direct correlation to the loan rates. Here in Michigan, we already pay pretty high insurance rates, so please keep an eye on that. Keep an eye. The higher the credit score, the more apt you are to qualify for a good credit discount. And employment applications and renting are also things where the stronger the credit history, the better off we are. So let's do an example here. These three people all want to borrow $10,000 for a car, and they've decided to pay this back over 5 years. Well, the first person that comes in the door is Ringo. Ringo has a 620, and gang, that's about the lowest we could possibly approve. It's a fairly low credit score. The rate we'd offer, and I'm just talking about kind of the lending community, is about 20%, which would make his monthly payment about $265. And take a look at this interest. Ringo borrows $10,000, will end up having to repay almost $16,000. Well, let's take a look at his friend George. George has a 670, much higher. Okay, I can't give him the best rate because the 670 is about a B minus C plus. Going to go about 9%. That monthly payment is only almost $50 less. And take a look at the interest here, almost cut in half. Borrows $10,000, needs to repay back a little over $12,000. Final scenario. Here's Paul. Wow, a 730 is a strong credit score. Really good history. We're going to be able to go 3.5% on this. That monthly payment is perfect, fits his budget. He will borrow $10,000. He will repay less than $11,000. So I just wanted to share with you here, credit scores have a direct correlation on the interest rate which you will be charged. So we want to be high as we can. We want to be as high as we can. So I hope this example kind of helped put a little clarity to that equation. All right. You're all going to get a copy of this. This is really important here. Payment history is extremely important. It's 35%. So don't miss any credit or payments. You would lose anywhere from 50 to 100 points with one missed payment. So we really have to be careful about not missing any credit payments. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is amounts owed. For those that are using credit cards, be careful with how much you're actually using them each month. If your utilization, which is just your balance compared to your limit, is over 50%, ideally I'd like it 25 to 30, but if it's north of 50%, your score will not be as high as it could be. Essentially what the system says is, boy, you're using a lot of your credit line each month. Even if you're paying it in full, it just makes you look a little risky if you're using credit for a lot of those daily activities. So try to keep overall usage for your credit cards in the 25 to 30% range. So the last little fun area, we're going to smile on this one. This one says true or false. How cash, card, or mobile you spend impacts how much you spend. So I want to hear true or false. Chat that into me. Let's see if we have a consensus here. And we're getting Sierra says true, absolutely. And yeah, Alex agrees. And I'm with you guys. Yeah, the answer is true. Take a look at this last. There's studies, not Mark's studies, but lots of studies out there. This was a report that was issued early in 2018. McDonald's reports that when someone goes into their restaurant and purchases items, if they use cash, if they use credit or debit, the average sale is $7. If they use cash, it's less than $5. It's almost a $2 difference. So let's be careful that we don't use that plastic as like, well, you know, and I often encourage people, hey, sometimes cash still works, and there's a little bit of behavioral item that goes along with using cash. So my wife loves to shop at Target, so I use this little graphic here. So please keep track of where, why, and how much you spend. I mean, our hard-earned dollars, this is a financial golden rule. we need to occasionally ask ourselves, is this a want or a need? Let's make sure we're taking care of our needs first and the wants come second. The wants are stuff we're saving for. Let's make sure that this does not get kind of out of order here. And I always use this slide. Everybody's different. Every single person on this session is different today. We all have our challenges in terms of comfort zone. Whether it's holidays, we feel generous. Some of us like to shop. Not Mark. Okay, this is not my area. I'm good. If I'm not, but I'll tell you what where I need to catch myself is my children. I can go 12, 18 months without getting a new pair of tennis shoes. But if my children come to me and they say, Daddy, I really need new tennis shoes for the tennis team, guess what? All right, get in the car, we're going to Dick's. I have a really, really hard time saying no to my kids. And we all have little areas and stuff like that. So make sure that we have a good idea of how much we've got in our budget. Let's stay in our comfort zone. Be careful of those small things. A lot of times when I do budget counseling, the folks immediately say, oh, it's got to be my house or my car. And all of a sudden, when we start peeling away, it's the small stuff. It's the coffee every morning. It's the lunches 4 to 5 times a week. It's all these small things that are adding up that are really putting pressure on our budget. And I call it kind of the latte factor, that these small things, when they all add up, they make a pretty significant impact on how much we've got. Small stuff, we talked about this. Think about maybe using cash. Anything less than $10, put the plastic away. And you might ask yourself, do I really want to spend $8 on this meatball sub at Subway? I think I can pass. Okay, you might do that if you've only got so much dollars set aside each week for lunches and coffee. And then I use this a little bit. I'm careful to, my wife is not here today, so I'm safe, but I can't tell you how many times, oh my gosh, I was at Kohl's and sweaters were 50% off. I'm like, okay, I didn't know we needed any sweaters. Well, we don't. But they were 50% off. I'm like, okay, well, I can barely fit this anymore in my drawer, and I'm just being mean, don't worry. But just be careful that we're not spending money just to kind of get this ability to say, hey, I saved. It kind of goes back to that needs versus wants. Buy one, get one free, free shipping. You guys have been there. And then certainly in today's economy, I mean, think about it. When we walk into a Walmart, we can get a 2-gallon thing of milk, I can get tennis shoes, I can get pet food, I can get a new screwdriver, I can get a new plant for my front. There's nothing that Walmart practically doesn't sell. So let's make sure that that convenience that doesn't lead to excess at places like Amazon and Costco. And I'm not suggesting that these are bad places, they're not, but that convenience can sometimes, I've seen, lead to overspending on just items. It's like, boy, you walk in and it's like, oh my gosh, I can get anything here. So what we talked about today, you guys, is we started out and I said, hey, let's make sure we're organized. We've got a good plan. We use a budget or spending plan. Then we transitioned a little bit into savings. And I said, I really want you to take a 3-pronged approach to savings. An emergency fund, a retirement fund, which should be money in the market, and finally a living life fund for whatever is important to you. Home improvements, vacations, tuition, everything that it matters to you. We did some credit education. We talked about being careful with credit cards. And then we also talked about the importance of a good credit score. And then I gave you an example that says, wow, the higher the credit score, the more favorable my terms will be on any borrowing I do. And then we finished up with just some fun information about making sure we're asking ourselves, if we're going to spend our money, is it a need or a want? And let's make sure that we're not spending money on stuff that just because, hey, it's 50% off or buy one, get one free, that we're just making sure that we're being thoughtful and that we're always kind of, hey, this, I only have so many dollars, where are they going? So before I turn it over to Megan, I just want to thank you guys for chatting in and for your responses. And I certainly I welcome you to send me an email if you have questions and stuff like that, specific to your own financial situation. I'm happy to, provide a little guidance. My fee is $0. So I'm always happy. I'm grateful that Megan asked me to come in here and just share some information with you guys. So don't feel nervous about reaching out. So I'm going to go ahead and let Megan kind of tie things up and make sure y'all are all set for going forward, okay?
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. I'll hang out here for a few
right.
minutes. And yeah.
Okay, so I was very informative. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email Mark or send them to me. And I can also post his presentation online if that helps too. And the budget that you said, if you have that.
It's an Excel spreadsheet.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, so as far as assignments and things that are due, by tonight at 11:59 p.m., you should have unit number 4, module number 2 completed, which includes journal number 4, your time management for unit 5, and making sure that you've sent that email confirming that your interview is scheduled with someone in the field that you are interested in going into. So that's by tonight. And then by Sunday at 11:59 p.m., unit number 5, module number 1 is due. So we're moving into that next unit. You guys are all doing a great job. I'm almost done grading all of the assignments right now that you've turned in from Sunday. So make sure that, again, that you're going in and you're looking through your grades, reading any comments that I've left. And so if you need to resubmit anything, or if you're missing a grade for something that you turned in, please keep up on those things, look them over. I do make mistakes. So if you're missing something, I want to make sure I get a grade in there for you. And try and catch up on any assignments that you haven't turned in yet through unit 4, module 2, because we're moving on to unit 5. So as far as anything that is due coming up, are there any questions of anything? If you need to go over anything, please go ahead and type that in the chat box. If you don't have any questions, go ahead and put an N there so I know that we don't have any questions and we can move on. Okay. And just a reminder, if you've tuned into the meeting past about 20 minutes, you're still going to need to complete the alternate assignment since you've missed quite a portion of the meeting, so make sure you do that. And for those of you that are completing the alternate assignment, make sure that you are going through all of those questions on that sheet, emailing the questions to our guest speaker and to me. Do you want us to list the amounts of our expenses in Journal 4? I don't exactly remember all of the specific questions in Journal 4. So I'd have to go back and take a look at that, but I will have to get back to you. Tanisha, I will email that answer to you because I have to go back and look. All right, I will take a look at that. Perfect. Any other questions? Did I miss anything? All right, it looks like everyone else doesn't have any questions, so keep up the good work, everybody, and we will meet again next week. Take care.